Well, my journey is that I've been in the UK for almost 50 years. I went there as an 11-year-old, and I studied medicine in London at the Royal Free. And then I became a surgeon, and I was a urological surgeon for 13 years in the centre of England, a place called Leicester. And things happen in life serendipitously, and I got interested in teaching, and I became an associate dean, and then I was deputy dean in Leicester, then I was acting dean, and gave me a flavour of running an educational organisation as such. And so after 13 years I was offered the position of being postgraduate dean in the southwest of England, around Bristol. So in postgraduate training we have our trainees, they go through lots of different hospitals. So I had 8 cities, 12 hospitals, almost 2,500 trainees, all learning to be specialists in different areas. Because medicine has 65 specialties, 34 subspecialties. So creating all those programs was a huge privilege. So everything I've done in my life has been a huge privilege. And this position is exactly that. It's a huge privilege to be able to heading the postgraduate school. Well, as a postgraduate dean, I often used to host things in the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland. So I knew the college, and I knew the Irish culture, and I knew some of the people there. So when this opportunity was advertised, I applied for it. So, like I say, that things just happen. It was the right time. I was moving away from being a postgraduate dean. I was professor of medical education in the University of Bristol. And life's a journey. And the greatest journey you can have is not the places you've been or seen or done. The greatest journey you have is actually how this develops. And so you need constant stimulation and interest and so on. And you know, the opportunity to work with a great institution and contribute something is an amazing privilege. And so obviously I jumped at it when they said, yes, we'd like to have you. Absolutely. You said a little bit about this university at the beginning. Well, we're celebrating our 11th year here in Bahrain. So it's a very young university. And the postgraduate school is really quite young, starting in 2012. But I'm thrilled that I've come at a point where we're really investing heavily into the postgraduate school to try and develop it. We particularly wish to develop postgraduate studies and research in the Kingdom of Bahrain. But as a university, we have students here from 39 countries, all over the world. In terms of postgraduate studies, it's an iterative process, it's developing. So there have been some great initiatives that have really helped. I mentioned about I've come at a stage with a great investment. Well, one of the things that has happened in 2015, for the first time, we have invested in PhD programs. These are fully funded scholarships for 5 years. And this is a collaboration between RCSI in Dublin and RCSI in Bahrain. And each scholarship is worth $200,000. So it's a, an amazing scholarship. So we appointed 3 students in 2015, and we have just sent out our note for appointing another 3 students in 2016. So, the idea of having some senior researchers doing their PhDs, and hopefully some of them in Bahrain will become postdocs and future professors in their field, and you can imagine what it will do in terms of the culture and the atmosphere and so on. And in this space, they're all going to be hot desking, and it's going to be terrific. So I can't wait for them to come and have the buzz groups and create that excitement, because innovation happens in conversations. Well, as a sort of a foundation in trying to develop research, we looked at what is required here in Bahrain and what is the strength of our faculty. And there were 3 key pillars that we particularly looked at. One was oncology, cancer. which is a global issue. Another area is in endocrinology, and as you know, diabetes is a huge issue in the world, but particularly in the Gulf, and Bahrain has a very high level of diabetes. And a third area that we particularly want to look at is also in what is called hemoglobinopathies, such as sickle cell disease. So these are some of the sort of areas that is sort of part of the original strategy. But what I want to do is go a little bit more beyond that, to be flexible and look at what expertise we have here. So it could be in any aspect, stem cell work, for instance, or in other diseases. Asthma is very common here in Bahrain. So our School of Primary Care is looking to see whether that's an area of research that they can develop. So I think things happen with what you see, and you reflect on it and say, yes, I think we need to look at that. Why is this happening more here than there? And there are some other areas which I think much more in the future rather than immediately. There are areas such as end-of-life care, palliative care, dementia, obesity, all these things, and they link with cardiovascular disease, which is another one of our pillar areas. So these things are related, but you have to start somewhere. So this is just a guide, if you like, to sort of areas we can look at. Yes, indeed. We have obviously very close ties with RCSI Dublin, which is a hugely research-intensive university. But locally here, we have developed a very close working relationship with the Arabian Gulf University. We have a common research fund to pump prime research here. And in 2015, for the first time, we actually allocated 2 grants for researchers in AGU and in RCSI Bahrain to work together to try and take that forward. And the University of Bahrain want to do the same thing of setting up a common fund to try and develop that. It's not huge, it's something like 20,000 BD, but it's sufficient to try and engage with people, encourage them, motivate them, support them, and drive their desire to contribute. No, it's not about taking any students out. It's actually about, they've got very good research teams in their own university, and so have we. So what happens is that you have to have a principal researcher based here in RCSI Bahrain and a principal researcher in AGU who are working on the same theme. One area, for instance, is Arabic gum. In what way is that helpful, and what therapeutic properties it has. Another one is the one we have supported is on cardiovascular disease, looking at young people and trying to get baseline scores for them. So you look at 2 people with common interests. Okay, and they put forward for funding, and they have to make it very clear what is the funding for. The funding may be to try and support some research assistance, to support a student, to help actually doing practical things. It may be to support reagents, lab costs, materials and so on to do that. So we won't be taking people away, but actually it's about building collaboration. Because as you know, research is no longer done by an individual scientist working in some basement. It really is done by teams. And what's more now, if we in Bahrain are going to become the hub of education, we need to really create great teams who collaborate not only within Bahrain, but also within the Gulf. And in that way, it'll allow us to put in proper, powerful grant bids. So if you have various good institutions putting a bid together for something that's important, people will take note of that and you might be successful. Individually, it'd be very difficult to get grants. Well, this is a historical thing. RCSI Dublin has been established in 1784. But the Bahrain campus started in 2004. But prior to that, for about 30 years, RCSI Dublin had been working with the Kingdom of Bahrain to develop primary care programs for general practice. So there was a long link going back many years. And then there was a desire from the government to have another medical school here. And it was a collaborative decision made between the Prime Minister of Bahrain and the Prime Minister of Ireland together to come here and establish another institution to try and develop education here. So it's based on very close previous links. Many people here in the Kingdom have studied in Ireland, so they have a good link, so they feel very comfortable with the culture of RCSI. Well, we have very good laboratory work. We have a very strong department in chemistry, and particularly looking at developing molecules from something called curcumin, which is a chemical name for something which is used quite a lot in cooking, turmeric powder. The Hindi word for that is haldi. So they're looking at the therapeutic properties of curcumin, and can we develop molecules that are better than that? One of my colleagues is looking at can this have an effect on cancer cells, for instance. Okay, so there's laboratory-based research, bench-based research. Okay, then there's population-based research, looking at diabetes, looking at heart disease, looking at the community side. And then there is also, we have an excellent department of community engagement, that they actually do a lot of charity work, but they also go out and support people and so on, and develop audit, what's happening, how can we improve things, like quality of water, hygiene, infectious diseases, and so on. It's about education as well. So they're engaging with primary school children, trying to get the habits right, because obesity is a huge issue, and obesity in fact affects everything. So it's the one thing that affects cancer, it affects heart disease, it affects chest, bones, everything. Yes, I mean the three big teaching hospitals here, King Hamad University Hospital, BDF, and Salmania, we work with all three. In them also we have joint appointments, so people who are consultants based in these hospitals also have a honorary lecturer position or senior lecturer position with us. Some are professors, for instance, with us. So it's important to work through that. As you know, we are a healthcare institution. The reason why we exist is to actually help patients. And so a critical bit is actually learning about how to look after patients, how to drive that forward and take it from there. Yeah, well, I think it's huge credit to the Ministry of Health that they are investing quite a lot in research facilities. What you're seeing outside my office is the new oncology block being built at King Hamad, and they were going to have a significant area devoted to research. So we are quite excited about that, because that is our sister institution. And very convenient as well, and we hope to be able to collaborate with them on that. Similarly, BDF is investing hugely in a cardiac center, a new cardiac center in Bahrain, so there's another huge opportunity for us to work together. Well, we're going to have a review of our strategy in January, but in essence, we made a good start this year with the 3 PhD programs. For 2016, we're going to advertise for further 3 PhD programs. The other bit that I want to develop is our Masters in Health Research. So we want to have Masters program on our license as well as the PhD programs. It's about building closer links with the Higher Education Council, who've been hugely supportive. I'm particularly grateful to the Secretary General of the HEC, Professor Riyad Hamza, for encouraging research and for us to work through on the research strategy. I'm part of their research strategy group, so that's fortunate for me to be able to hear from them and contribute. So a closer link with HEC and our institutions is going to be quite important. Also, we want to try and develop closer links with the National Health Regulatory Authority, and I and another colleague, we're in different committees. I sit on the Clinical Trials Committee, for instance. So that gives you, good working relationship, and you then sort of plan out your vision, and then you find you're working together, you're on the same side, and you've got a common aim to drive that research side. So next year, PhD programs, develop and deliver the master's program in health research. We do have 3 students who are doing masters by research only. I'm talking about a taught masters. And I know there's a lot of desire to do that. I've had 11 people come and see me saying that, when are you going to start this master's program? So we're going through the approval process, and I hope that towards the end of next year we can be able to deliver on it. I think that these things go hand in hand. It's not that, I mean, I was a consultant surgeon for 13 years, but I spent quite a lot of time, right from graduation to time I left clinical practice in driving research. So research is about being curious. It's about wondering, you know, why is it we do things this way? Is that the best way of doing it? Or why does this happen? You know, what's the reason for that? So it's and that curiosity and the drive to achieve the best you can is quite important and goes hand in hand. At my time, there wasn't much research done by medical students. I think that's one of the big changes now. So we have a student summer research project here, and in 2015 that was hugely successful. We had 43 students involved with 17 projects. So that was much more than before, and it has translated into publications. For instance, this university produces something like 13% of all publications in the island. We had 38 publications last year, and in 2015. So that's terrific, you know, that is going through. So the students also do something called student selected component, where they can study in a particular area of their own choice, and often that sows some seeds of areas of interest, and that might translate into research projects. Because these people are really passionate, you know, they want to do things, and they want to engage, and they want to learn. And it gives them opportunities to see the bigger picture and engage with various disciplines. Some of them go abroad to different units, you know, which is terrific. As a student, you don't have other pressures on you, and you can actually look at the way things are done in a different institution, and that's a terrific credit, I think, to RCSI. Yeah. If you were to ask me what is the essence for us, I think it would be about driving quality. And to drive that quality, you do need to have investment into postgraduate studies and research. We don't want our graduates to graduate and say, well done, you've passed, that's the end of story, and nothing more to do with you. We have to support our alumni, because we have to help them to develop postgraduate studies. Because when you graduate, you're still actually, it's almost like you're at the bottom of a new ladder, and you have to grow and develop. And so therefore I think it's important that as a university we support our alumni. So I think that bit is important. Indeed, so I think if you invest in research, what happens is it stimulates the faculty. We all need stimulation, we all need motivation, we all need to try and capture that energy that drives us. And that means that you get better faculty, you get better teaching. That in turn means that the students are motivated and they perform better and they gain more. And ultimately, the real purpose of this goal is that patients benefit. So quality has a direct link with patient safety and effectiveness. Well, I mentioned to you earlier about our community engagement department, which Julie Sprackle leads. Is hugely successful, dealing with schools and other institutions. We have an excellent communications department that is helping us to try and project things. I'm surprised actually how many people do know about RCSI, and in fact I think we're fortunate to have a very good name on the island, and the the fact that we're publishing, we are promoting things. I think yesterday I saw in the paper a nice article about RCSI Bahrain supporting one of the charity groups, and there was our President Samir there supporting this. So constantly we're engaging with the community, with the hospitals, with the departments and so on, and I think that's coming along really well. What I think is much more interesting now is that we are more able to collaborate, because you have to take things in steps. So the foundations have been laid. Now we need to take it to the next level. Just mentioning that we're going to do a master's program, it just goes a little bit viral, and people hear about it and so on, and these young students and residents and so on, they're all coming along and saying, when is this going to happen? Also, I do want to thank our communications department. They are updating our website and so on, so there'll be a lot of interesting and exciting things coming up on that as well. Yes, we do advertise, but quite a bit of it is word of mouth, because when you have a happy school, people who are leaving and so on, they tell their colleagues and friends and so on about that, and we're fortunate to have people from, as you say, from all over the world, and it's interesting that people who are leaving, then people from their part of the world are looking to come over here as well. So it is happening that way. As an example to you about progression, the research day here was something that was half a day, and something like 60 to 70 people would attend. But this year our research, we made it all day, and we had over 130 people who attended. People who've submitted abstracts and come along, we also invited the universities, and I'm really thrilled that Professor Riyad Hamza from HEC came and gave a talk. We had an excellent talk from Epticar on innovation, and Professor Ronan Conroy came from Dublin and then talked about how to get engaged in research to support the students. We had 24 posters, 16 oral presentations on top, so it was all day in developing it. Now for 2016, we're going to make it international. It's not going to be just in Bahrain. We're going to invite medical schools from around the Gulf. So we started small, we sort of expanded it to a whole day. We now want to try and engage with the Gulf, because that is where I think the future lies, in collaboration and working together and so on. You asked me earlier about how do people find out about you. Well, when we ask them to contribute to the research day, to submit their abstracts and so on, that will make, I think, quite an impact. People know here's a medical school that's innovative, is energetic, is doing things, it's on the move, and so hopefully we'll get good engagement from that. So I'm pleased that although we make mistakes, we learn from them, and we take that forward. So that, I think, gave me a lot of satisfaction that here's something that started small is now developing. Yes, they actually apply to our Pacific website address. We do get a huge number of applications. We're particularly trying to concentrate locally here. And we're particularly looking at people who have expressed a special interest as to why they've applied for that program. It's not about, I'm a good person, I'm hardworking, and I like to do a PhD. It's actually about what has attracted you to this program? What skills do you have? What knowledge have you already gained that is going to help you to achieve this PhD program? Doing a PhD is about blood, sweat, and tears. It's an important part of your life. It's part of your DNA. And you don't apply as if this is just a career enhancing movement. It's really about somebody who's prepared to burn the midnight oil and see the early morning dew because they're so passionate about their subject. So it's those are the type of people that we want to attract, and I'm thrilled. I've just recently met our 3 students, and they're principal investigators in Dublin, and they're just over the moon about it. And we've already learned a lot about in what ways should we be more flexible. A key bit for us is do things yesterday. So we've actually already advertised this year for invited projects for this, and the closing date for that will be on the 7th of February. We're going to send it out for external review, which will be finished by middle of March, and it'll be then going out to the students to apply. And we've already set the date for interviews. It's going to be the 16th of May. So, you know, we're way ahead. We've got timelines, and we want to deliver on this to attract the best students, the best faculty to deliver this. I think it's important to appreciate that it's not me here in the School of Postgraduate Studies and Research. It's actually the whole institution that's contributing to this. And I would want to give particular credit to Professor Seamus Cowman, who's the head of the School of Nursing and Midwifery. They have a very successful master's program in nursing, and also to our Institute of Leadership. And they have 2 very successful master's program in healthcare management and quality and safety, run across the Gulf, as well as in Ireland. So it's a huge credit to them that adds to the sort of the quality of the programs as well as diversity to the school.